So Dr. Callie Cyrus received her BA from Stanford University, her MPH from Emory University, and MD from the University of Illinois at Chicago College of Medicine. She completed psychiatry residency at Yale, where she served as chief resident and co-founded the LGBT psychiatry discussion group. She was an assistant professor at Yale School of Medicine, where she led the development of the Department of Psychiatry's residency program Social Justice and Health Equity curriculum. Since August 2018, she has been working on health policy in Senator Chris Murphy's office as the American Psychiatric Association's 2018 Jan Spurlock Congressional Fellow. Today, Callie will be speaking about how healthcare leaders interface with government. So thank you for being here, Callie. Welcome. I think, are you on the desktop? You're on the desktop. We'll get you set up. Cool.
First of all, Veronica, I love your demeanor. I don't have that kind of that comedic timing. I smile too much. I was just really jealous of that. And you did a great job. I'm also a ham, by the way, so feel free to take whatever photos you want. Okay, so she already told you all this stuff. I think the last thing is that I also started a business since I left, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I have to use this one. No, I mean, okay, so I'm going to talk to you about how healthcare leaders can interface with the government. Just for disclosures, my only one is that I'm paid by the American Psychiatric Association. I don't think that really matters here, but. And in terms of objectives, I really just have one, and that's I just want to convince you to be a leader in healthcare and a leader everywhere. But really, we should try to get into government because I'm working there right now, and everyone is kind of a dum-dum, and they really need us. So I'm going to give you my guide to leadership. I'm mostly none of these people, or like any of these people, or as holy or, saintful as any of these people. I strive to be more like Oprah, I think, if I had to, but I'm gonna try. So step one, right? If you're going to try to be a leader in healthcare, never forget why you chose to work in healthcare, which means first you have to learn what made you choose to work in healthcare. So you have to think about your feelings, think about your past, think about why you decided to take all these tests and spend all this money and, enter this path. Pro tip number one is that you also need to keep this up as you progress in your career. So develop practices that might enhance your awareness. So journaling, meditation, volunteering. I choose therapy. I'm in a lot of therapy, so that's my thing. But these are all good ways. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I chose healthcare, and also as we go through my guideline steps, I'll use myself as an example. So for me, this is baby Callie. I know, right? Isn't she really precious? Let's just focus right on this carpet situation. The nail polish that's not completely off. I don't think my mom knew that it was picture day. But this is me, right? Sweet little closeted queer tomboy who was just consistently one of these little brown kids in her classrooms on very much not the hard streets of West Palm Beach. That is like an oxymoron. But it exists, right? That does exist. I just grew up in middle class. And I also grew up, though, with mommy issues, and that's why I chose healthcare, to tell you the truth. I think there's actually a research study out there that was done by someone in my department of psychiatry about why people chose psychiatry, and the majority of it is someone in the family had psychiatric issues. For me, it was really my mommy issues. I think it's mostly mommy or daddy issues, if you ask me. And so this is my mother, who's an amazing woman. She's taught me a lot of lessons that I think have made me really who I am today, and she surprises me really all the time. She's also hilarious, problematic half the time, but it makes for a great and interesting life, right? So she's sassy. She's from South Carolina, was born in the 50s, grew up in a really small town, South Carolina, and I got cancer when I was in middle school. I think her experiences with doctors and not feeling comfortable speaking to them and telling them, what was going on with her, and then also after. And so I don't know how many of you know, but cancer survivors have really high rates of depression. And I'm not sure that these systems are integrated quite well to make sure that they're connected to care afterwards. And so often it's years later before people actually get into care. And so, she was my mom. That's how I grew up. And I'm not from South Carolina. And I wasn't born in the 50s, right? So you can, mommy issues. That's basically what that green symbol is. So we're going to move to a survey, and that is, why did you choose a future in healthcare? So this is just first my Google image situation. And what's interesting? This little guy who's shaving, what did I Google? I think ambitious children is what I Googled. And I don't know why he's shaving. Like, what does that mean? Also, she looks really upset. And that. Anyway. So you have a poll situation, right? You should be texting. So I want you guys to answer this question for me. Why did you choose a future in healthcare? Mommy, daddy, guardianship issues. Mom, dad, grandpa, god sister, abuelita all work in healthcare, which is a theme that's often, and they made me. It was too late to change my major, and I'm still here. I really like science, and I don't mind paying thousands for application fees, test prep courses, because you think you're going to make money, but you're not. Unless you're an orthopedic surgeon or something like that. And I want to make the world better. And I asked this because I actually, when I entered, thought it was mostly F, and it's not. It's just not. And I think for me, I'm at this, it doesn't matter, whatever your reasons are for choosing it, just know why you're choosing it. I'm not going to, lay my judgment on you, unless you were my friend, and I would tell you the judgy part, but.
So just to jump in, you have to text QMED 2019 to 37607, and that will open the poll for you. Don't text the number
Don't
that's
text this one? Okay.
up there.
That's very confusing.
It is confusing.
Okay, I actually thought it was that one too, but. And I understand there's not a G, which is one or a combination of the above, or none of the above. And I don't think this one will tell me that everyone has participated, so we'll just have to call it at some point. Okay, for you, one or two who like science, good for you. I hated science, and I tell that publicly and honestly. I really did. I knew I wanted psychiatry from the moment of medical school, so med school was painful. Okay. All right, so we want to make the world better. That's really uplifting, isn't it? Considering everything we just learned in the previous presentation, the world needs a lot of help, so I want to make the world better. So keep that with you. But if that's not your reason, and it's money, 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 okay, that's your reason, you know that. But I do think that one thing I would encourage everyone is, again, not the judge. People will judge probably however you feel about literally anything, but as long as you have insight and awareness and are working on why you are doing what you're doing, then that's your life. And, do your thing. So as long as we have an idea about that. So keep this in mind as we progress. Okay, so step 2, related, maintain an awareness of what issues you're passionate about. And so not just why you chose to work in healthcare, but like what in healthcare, if you were going to be a leader, you want to focus on and help and sort of, direct your passion towards. And so, because I personally think that passion is the fuel that motivates leadership. So there are a lot of people, I understand, you get into college and med school, you have to do activities that go on your CV and your resume. I personally can't fake things very well. If I'm just doing something to put on a resume, I look miserable. I look like the girl who's in the corner who's making that face. So I usually just try to do what actually feels good. And also, pro tip, which is what I'm saying, I don't think you can half-ass this. You can't do it for very long. You'll burn out, or it'll show. And if you're working with people in healthcare, which are people's lives who depend on you, you really have to know why you're doing it. And when you don't know anymore, you need to step out and just kind of like self-select and say, I'm going to bench myself right now. So look at all these issues. Oh my God, I think I Googled social justice issues, and all of pornography came up. They don't mean pornography is a social justice issue, but I guess that's the best way that they can kind of encapsulate it. But how many issues can you have passion for? I know we saw one, which was, incarceration, LGBTQI plus individuals. There's race. There's literally every identity. How do you even choose? which actually leads to the next question. How many issues can one person actually be passionate about? Yeah, so here we go. One, just one issue? Like, is this, oh, this is easy, just one issue. Two, I guess, three, as many as you want. Keep talking, really just, I want to go to the bathroom. No one chose A? Okay, thank you. Just so we can say we have a diverse group of people here with different views. Okay. I see that as many as you want. And okay, whatever, lady. Also, I'm going to keep talking then for you E people, but as many as you want. That's what most of the people in this room think. I agree. I think you can be passionate, personally, about as many issues as you want. But back to my whole kind of thing about you do you, as long as it's not harmful to your health, right? Because that can happen, right? You can choose. I've definitely been this person. I usually am this person, actually. I don't tend to recognize when I'm on this side until I'm at the top like that. But it can be overwhelming. So the one and only person might actually be doing the thing. If you know you can only do one and only thing right now, then that's it. If you know you just want me to keep talking so you can go to the bathroom, that's your thing. And I respect that, right? If that's what you need to maintain your mental and physical health. So, but you also, in that gigantic list, if you're going to do as many as you want, I think it's, it's trying to understand what actually fuels your passion. So you might not know, right? It might change. Maybe you haven't seen or interacted with that issue that really makes you so motivated and this is what I want to do. So you have to figure that out, and it takes some time. So for me, this is how I sort of discovered, my passion. So this is Callie. These are the things that are, at least the photos I could find right now, that are important. So it's me, my mom, Whitney Houston, of course. That's me dressed as Oprah. So costume is that one. Those are my friends from college. And that's my girlfriend. She's sitting on the front row. And that's my dog. He's in the back, but I like his best friend better. So that's Larry David in the front. And my dog is Freddie Mercury. He's in the back. Yeah. So I just adopted him from Puerto Rico. And I didn't go to Puerto Rico to he's rescued from Puerto Rico, but I love him so dearly. And I'm really into this kind of stuff now when I probably really hated dog people before. But it's an indication of what's going on in your life can fuel your passions. And so this is what makes me me. Maybe some of this made me more 10 years ago right now, but this has contributed to who I am right now. I'm 34, technically a millennial. I love Florida right now. I always hated Florida, but I might get it tattooed on my body. Where did that come from, right? I played rugby, and by the way, I didn't actually know I was gay when I played rugby, But my team, to be honest, was mostly made up of sorority girls, and no one believes me, but it is true. So, straight sorority girls. Yes, right. And I'm Geraldine's daughter. Honestly, I'm who I am. My mother's sort of mantra is, you don't know if you don't ask, which means she asks literally anything that she wants to. And I grew up with a weird sense of boundaries, which I think has been great. But it's also, I've had to figure that out. And I'm still in the process of sometimes figuring out, what can't you ask? Because I just have a lot of curiosity. But these are the things, these are the sort of this is what's driving me. So in terms of my passion, one of those things is first of all, how can you exist in this body, right? And go to medical school and work at some place like Yale and exist in this world. So I grew up just understanding why I felt so different is what I will say. Why did I perceive to be treated differently? Why did I feel that I didn't fit in places? And just, even if I just walk in the room, why did I feel like the way that I looked could have future downstream, influence over who my friends were, how well I did in school, who, wanted to be my friend or lover, and why I avoid certain people. And then also, why did I want to do the things that I want to do? Why do I like costume? Why do I love Oprah? And how much does that have to do with the way that I look or who I am? And then also when the magic happens, that's actually the most special, is when does and by magic, I mean like connection. Like when does it work with someone who is so different from you? Because sometimes it does, and you're like, where did this come from? And so I think professionally, my passion in this list of issues is how does difference actually influence all of these things? And so that's why my argument is you can choose as many issues as you want, again, to maintain your health. But if you are interested in social justice, capitalized social justice, you'll have moments where you will have to apply it to one of these bullet points. But if, to reference sort of Veronica and also the speakers yesterday, if you know that you want to sort of advocate and be a leader for people who don't have access or who are different from you, who may not have a seat at the table, that can be anybody, no matter what they look like and what they do. It could be any issue. Like, I didn't really care about dogs that much. And now I'm probably like animal rights. Like, I don't want people I want them to pick up their poop. Like, what is going on here? They're all, and this changes. And so I think keeping in mind where you are, what you're feeling, and what feels natural to you, because then you don't have to fake it and you naturally care about it. And it happens instinctually. Sometimes, you start to notice, whoa, that really bothered me. And then maybe that's an issue that you might start sort of being a leader and advocating for. But just keep in mind that you don't have to sort of be so narrow about things. I also take this approach generally in my teaching. I do believe that you need to learn about racism, sexism, all of the isms, but I generally call it big D difference. What is it, that thing that makes you different from someone that you really, for some reason, don't like? And work through that. And there are also historical reasons that contribute, et cetera, et cetera. So then 3, you have to figure out, you're knowing why you are doing what you're doing, what issues, you're drawn towards. So then what's the best way you're gonna apply that? What's the best way to be a leader and, that feels natural? Not just like how, but also where, when you do it, and then inside, how do you feel? And so pro tip for me is that these preferences, they're not dynamic. Wait, what did I say? They are dynamic, not static. They change. And that's actually really surprising when that happens sometimes. And so then you're like, well, how do I find the best way? If it can just change, right? And there's like 500 bullet points on that list, like how do I find the best way? The scientific method, right? I don't like science, but I love the scientific method. My girlfriend she's not good at the scientific method. She's an English literature professor, and she's like, well, where is the bathroom? I'm like, well, have you observed around where we are? First, but actually it's a really good, there's not always evidence for the observations, but that's why it's essentially trial and error at some point. And you get enough times of like, this isn't working or I feel really shitty, that you reframe. So for me, my observations over the years led to these questions. Why can't we get along, again, even if we're different? And how should we try to get along? So I didn't, grow up knowing the socio-ecological model, but at some point I must have Googled it and came across it. And there are different sort of depictions. There's one that's more interpersonal, intrapersonal. This is the one I chose for the talk today. But essentially, we navigate all of these systems in our lives. And, we've heard of code switching. Different contexts sort of dictate who we are and how much of we are in these circumstances and how we can be a leader. And maybe if it's not our time to be a leader, kind of sit back. But just as I progressed, I was keeping in mind how I felt in these different sort of systems and what I felt like I was able to contribute and when I needed to learn more to contribute or when it didn't work. And so I encourage you, as you move from the lecture hall to the bathroom to the coffee plastic thing that is there where you push the button and get it out, to lunch, the plane, et cetera, how can you help? If you're going to be a leader, you need to be thinking not just about yourself, but how can you help and if someone needs help. Like yesterday I was on the phone on the train. There was an older woman with the suitcase who just was like, she was just looking, and my girlfriend, she's like always mad that I'm screaming in her ear. At some point I'm just like, do you need help with your suitcase? Because this woman's just sitting here for 2 stops with her suitcase in the aisle on the train. Like, do you need me to lift it? And she didn't need it. So that was me kind of just like, intruding. But that was still one way where I can't help but be in touch of like, does this woman need help? When sometimes they don't, but you get over it. So you also have to have tough skin. Sometimes like people just don't need you, and that's fine. But so this is how I actually applied my passion over the years. So I'm starting with medical school because I know there's a number of medical students here. But so in medical school, what I was sort of dealing with was that I was in my mid-20s. I actually hadn't officially come out. It was around this time. And I never really had to be the LGBTQ advocate ever in a space. I never took that on. And I found out that I had to because there wasn't any education. There wasn't a lot of presence. And this was sort of the thing that I did. So I revamped our group, made sure we had like a mandatory lecture, which I think is now developed into some course series at my medical school. But that was what I felt like doing. And that's what I did. And that's probably the only thing I did. I didn't go to the free clinic. I didn't volunteer. This is what I did. And I was okay with that. And so if that's what you can do, but if you can do 4 other things, then that's you, as long as you can manage. So I got to residency, and at this point, I was feeling pretty good about being queer. And it was mostly, how do I deal with being me in this Yale, like in this place, which you've seen, how the space is. And so when I initially got here, I was asked to participate in the LGBTQ space, which was a good fit for me. But then that branched out to doing a lot of other things, which is mostly learning how to develop educational practices and clinics and clinical spaces that I could learn more about being myself, but also helping people who needed help, who didn't have the opportunities I did. And then after residency, when I decided to stay here at Yale, I had power as an attending, and it was working to try to help as many different types of people that I could. And I'll tell you this, I didn't actually add this, and that's a sign for me that it's somehow absent or I'm avoiding it, is that I worked in the deaf and hard of hearing clinic at our community mental health clinic. And this is a population that I really, I fight for any sort of marginalized if you're like a minority, I'm there to want to be your Superman. And I realized I completely sort of neglected the ableism side. And it was great for me to kind of know to get experience with this population. But it is sad, it's bad, how many resources there are not. And I think I was put in that situation. And it's a passion of mine now, even though it's not on this list. I think it's probably the population that I carry the most in my heart, that I worry the most about. And so I also chose settings like student mental health, where you have at Yale access to everyone who's just starting school, grad students, spouses, kids, great, right? People like me. Community mental health, so people without insurance, people who do have insurance, right? Who just can't afford it. Or emergency room psychiatry. You never know who's coming. Something's clearly going on. And then academically, again, learning how to better do things on the left side and using this column to do things on the right side. And so I developed a curriculum for the Department of Psychiatry. I was a standardized patient director, and I was doing some narrative writing. Oh. We're gonna go to step number 4, guys. You ready? Have you guys actually seen this movie? Okay. I'm gonna stop judging you though. I assume you're all you were born in the 90s and stuff and you don't know what this is. This is Ghost. So step number 4, I think, is that you should expect that things can change at any moment and be fine-tuning your ability to adapt. So for me, this was November 8, 2016, the election. So I don't think I knew that Trump could win. I grew up in the South. I know that there are tons of, I get the difference. But I think emotionally, it was kind of like this, all right, it happened. We have proof now all these bad things exist. Let's go out and do something. And even though my mindset may have changed, everyone around me necessarily didn't change. And I wanted this to happen quicker than I was actually possible. And it was not fun. And so what changed for me is that, I think up until 3 years ago, I really believed that we could do all this and achieve equity and justice. Again, remember, I'm such a ham, I love smiling and all this stuff. But I don't really think that now. 3 years ago, up until 3 years ago, I believed that we were actually making some kind of progress towards equity and justice. And, then I started thinking about the civil rights movement, and I was like, well, it's still the same. How many Black people are sort of count as physicians now are getting into medical school? We're the same. It's 7% or something like that since the 70s. So I'm not really sure. And up until 3 years ago, I believed that trying as hard as I could would create progress. I didn't think that there was no point in even not trying. And I questioned why I was trying and if I should be trying. And then I realized that it's knee-jerk for me. It just kind of is what it is. It's part of me. It's part of what makes me me, and I'm passionate about these things, and I can't help it. So I think I just stopped sort of, oh, I shouldn't be spending my time. I just do it. And I usually feel good about it. I mean, I think I have to be better about what I do and when I do it, but this is a lesson. Like, as you progress and you do your trial and error, and you have to adapt, figure out what fits and what doesn't. And it's okay if that doesn't work at that time, for 10 years you've been doing it. It's okay to like redirect and figure that out. And also to be in the phase where you're still figuring it out and not know, as long as you do try to figure it out at some point, right? And so next poll, which will come up, and the question is, if achieving equity and justice would never be possible, is it worth it for you trying to achieve it? And by effort, I mean the average amount of energy. Like, don't hurt yourself. All right. Are you kidding? I quit everything like 3 hours ago. Like, no, I would never do that. I really don't know. I think I need time to figure that out. I'm 0 to 60, right? Like, if I knew it wasn't happening, I quit that 2 minutes ago, and I'm not doing that ever again until I know it's possible. Or what a funny joke. Oh my God, it's always possible. Okay, you guys. I have to admit, I'm a little bit jealous of the D people. Okay. All right. So some people need some time. Some people are like, I'm done. Got something else, don't worry. Some people are like, I don't think I want to do this again. And there are a lot of us who are like, you know what, we should always try. And you know what I think? As long as you know where you are, right? Like I said, I can say now that I'm jealous of the D people because I used to be there and I really like that feeling, but I'm in B right now. That's just where I'm at. So do you. Again, as long as it doesn't hurt you. Also, I forgot to add the last part. It doesn't hurt someone else. Forgot about that. So long story short, I'm adapting, trying out new passions. And I'm actually, so this leads to what I'm doing right now. Oh, that didn't work. Which is that I moved. So my thing was that I left an environment that felt toxic to me, which was being here in New Haven. I moved to DC and took a position as this belongs on the other slide, Health Policy Fellow for Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. So it's a fellowship that's funded by the American Psychiatric Association that pays an early career psychiatrist to work on the Hill for 10 months. So I chose a Connecticut senator because I'd worked in Connecticut and this is a healthcare system that I knew, and I work on his health policy team. So he has a senior staffer who's the person who does this day in and day out. And then they have the legislative correspondent who answers the emails and writes letters and goes to a lot of meetings. And I'm somewhere in the middle, but mostly with the senior health policy staffer. So from 9 to 6, I go to the Senate. And I sit in a cubicle in a senator's office. It's really weird. It's like really, really weird. One, I don't like 9 to 6. But then I learned that people, like, they go to the barber. That's where there's a barber in the Senate. That's weird, isn't it? But, like, she's really great. Her name's Kim. I bring my dog. I bring Freddie on Fridays. And I mean, a lot of other really educational things. So I meet with stakeholders. So sometimes they're actually former colleagues who come in who are with their groups. So they are maybe with the pulmonary critical care people, and they want to tell us that what they want us to do is pass this legislation so that they can have the oxygen that you can take home that is, expensive right now. And then they're surprised to see me, but they're there with their advocacy group, and then I listen to what they say, and we keep it in mind as it comes time to sort of delineate money for appropriations, but also if there's an issue that comes up and we need to speak to someone who's an expert. So that's part of it, is that we meet with people. Secondly, outside groups like either government groups like the Secretary of Health and Human Services comes in. Sometimes like Aetna will come in, Epic, the medical records people will come in and say, we don't like this new issue that's coming up, we really need you to do that. Or we think you should do this, and this is why, like, what can we do for you? And then they brief you. So they tell you all about the background of it. And then there's also hearings, right? So my senator will go to a hearing on, I think the last one we had was on interoperability. So how do you get all the medical records to talk? And so I do a memo about the background of interoperability, and these are the questions you should ask. And that's my day. And it's cool. It's really cool. He also works on legislation. So I was helping to reintroduce his Choose Medicare Act, which means I had to sort of read through his long act and should we build this amount, not build this amount, have a cap on this stuff. I didn't really know what I was doing, but was able to fake it and sort of learn it at the same time. And it's cool. It's really cool. It's also sad at times, right? So I was there during the Kavanaugh hearings. And, you know, his office is right by the judicial room. So as they took breaks, I was able to go in the hallway and see, you know, all the press and see some of the senators walking out. You can also be in an elevator when, you know, Senator Tillis or somebody is someone you don't like. Well, I mean, he's okay, but, you know, it doesn't matter. You don't know who's going to be in the elevator is all I'm going to say. But it's really cool to see change at that level. It's also a little depressing because you see how many, I don't see a lot of healthcare providers at any level. That's why we need to be there. And so that's why some of this is that at some point, if it's local government, if it's, you know, joining your specialty organization and advocating at the state level, or eventually maybe if you do want to run for office, but it's somehow just at least saying that you want to be a leader and standing up, even if you don't really, like, you don't want to speak for another group, right? Or you don't, you know, you see something that's happening that you don't feel good about. It's just saying, I don't feel good about this, what can I do? And I think a lot of it just happened because I grew up in this institution. I care about this institution, and I started to see stuff that didn't bother me, and I said stuff for a while, and then it just was harmful to me. And I think I also wanted to come back to the report card question, which is about, you know, what do you do with this kind of stuff? And I think that this is, in addition to gathering research, which you guys will do as you progress through your training, also realize that there's some things that just aren't going to be in numbers, right? Like, how do you measure how racist somebody is, right? Like, no matter, we had the IAT, and now everyone's like, you can't trust the IAT. Like, you can't really trust the IAT. That's the truth, right? We're always looking for some of these tools and numbers and algorithms, and the argument is, yes, we need better tools. Try to get them wherever you can and develop them wherever you can. I'm hoping that your generation will be better at developing those tools. But sometimes that's not there, and you have to just go with it from whatever you've seen or whatever you felt, or just because you can't help it. So I really think you guys should run for office at some point, okay? And most of your specialty organizations will have some kind of workshop or educational something that will teach you how to do that. And so then is there another one? This is also another example that happened recently that got me thinking about this. This is my childhood friend from West Palm Beach who moved back and ran for Congress. She lost. She was also running against like a political juggernaut. He was a double amputee. He was a veteran, and he was a Republican who wanted to take away health care. And as it turns out, the Veterans Association didn't like him. The amputee community in Florida didn't like him either. And I was very involved, and she lost, and it was heartbreaking. But it's the way that it is, right? But a bunch of other people did win, right? How many women and people of color won? So there are some pluses and minuses, and again, discovering where you want to dedicate your time and how you feel about it is something you'll have to figure out. And then, again, so the next part of what am I doing, I'm also sort of leading by doing my own thing right now in the process of figuring it out. So one thing I know is that I've started a consulting company, and I think I'm moving away from doing groups and talking about this kind of stuff because it kind of hurts my mental health. But I like the one-on-one connection because I like people, because I'm a ham, right? I just love to laugh and smile and get to know you. And so I don't mind talking to you about maybe why you don't like Black people or gay people if you're paying me a lot of money, but no, I mean, I do. I think that bond is right now where I am. And I'll probably see patients a couple days a week, and maybe this isn't actually what I'll be doing in 3 months because it doesn't work, right? But this is kind of what it is right now. But I think if you know that you want to be a leader, you find a way to do that. So thank you. And I'd also just like to thank the Dean's Advisory Council, Darren and John, who were mentors to me during my time here, my girlfriend, and my support network. Any questions?